Good afternoon and welcome to Midday Report here on TVP World. I'm your host, Marie Cato. Regional authorities in Ukraine say Russian attacks over the past 24 hours have killed 9 people and wounded 42 others. Local media report that the governor of the Kharkiv region said 10 settlements suffered Russian strikes, killing 1 person and wounding 14. In the city of Kharkiv, Moscow's forces hit a maternity hospital. Officials say there were 9 casualties, including women in labor and others who were recovering from surgery. In the eastern Donetsk region, Russian strikes claimed 7 lives, 3 of whom were from the town of Pokrovsk, while 4 fatalities were reported in nearby villages. The governor of the southern Kherson region said Russia's targeted 37 settlements over the past 24 hours, wounding 14. Russia hit a maternity hospital in Kharkiv in northeastern Ukraine, forcing the evacuation of the facility, along with staff and patients, including women in labor and newborns. Hundreds of Russian drones struck multiple regions in a 3rd consecutive night of drone strikes targeting Ukraine.
We woke up and heard a very loud whistling sound. My husband and I jumped up and rushed to our little one. And right at that moment, there was a strike. The windows shattered. We were terrified. Thank God we're alive and well. Then we grabbed our child and ran to the basement. It was very scary because in the rush of adrenaline, I probably forgot that I had stitches. Now I'm slowly recovering from the shock. The main thing is that we're safe and alive.
We heard the first explosion. I ran to the little one. My wife got up. I took the child out into the hallway. Then came the second explosion, and it blew the windows out. Glass flew everywhere, and we ran to the shelter. The maternity hospital building was heavily damaged, especially the side where the delivery rooms and operating rooms are located. There were women in our maternity hospital who had just given birth yesterday or the day before. Some had undergone surgery.
Military aid and Ukraine's reconstruction have taken center stage at a high-level meeting of European leaders in Rome. At the same time, fresh Russian strikes on Ukraine have served as a stark reminder of the ongoing war.
Well, this Ukraine Recovery Conference in Rome is wrapping up. The final panels, the final press conferences are taking place. But Ukraine got what it came for. Billions in deals. That reconstruction fund announced by President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. And above all, support from the continent's key political leaders. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. In fact, Prime Minister Tusk met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy on the sidelines of this conference. They discussed weapons production. They discussed the air defense systems that are so crucial to Kyiv right now as Russia intensifies its air assaults. It's worth remembering that Poland is set to host this style of recovery conference in 2026 next year. And in the moments before President Zelenskyy left Rome, left this conference, he had a few words to say to the media. This is what he told us.
We have a positive dialogue with President Trump regarding Patriot systems. My request is for 10 Patriot systems and the corresponding amount of missiles for these systems. Germany is ready to pay for 2 systems. I have agreements with them. Norway is ready to pay. I have bilateral agreements with the Prime Minister for 1 system. When we get a clear answer from the manufacturer from the United States regarding various options for dates, we certainly understand the cost, then the other European partners will join in.
Now, alongside this meeting at the Ukraine Recovery Conference, there was also a meeting of the so-called Coalition of the Willing. That was effectively the leaders here, plus British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and President of France, Emmanuel Macron, who tuned in via video link on Thursday afternoon. They agreed to operationalise a post-ceasefire peacekeeping force. The details on that are still unknown, and have a permanent base in Paris. So these leaders trying to pull out all the stops in this push for peace in Ukraine. In Rome for TVP World, I'm Aaron Darman.
In a significant step towards rebuilding Ukraine's energy infrastructure, a new initiative has been launched to restore and modernize the country's energy sector.
The announcement was made during the Ukraine Recovery Conference in Rome on Thursday. The United Nations Development Programme and the Norwegian government have partnered to launch a $200 million initiative aimed at revitalizing Ukraine's energy sector. which has been repeatedly targeted during Russia's full-scale invasion. The funding will focus on both immediate energy needs and long-term modernization efforts, helping restore basic resources such as heating and running water to millions of Ukrainians, particularly in frontline areas. Norway has also allocated €42 million to the Ukraine Energy Support Fund to protect critical infrastructure from further Russian attacks and develop more resilient energy networks.
Commemoration ceremonies are being held in Srebrenica today, marking the 30th anniversary of the genocide, which saw over 8,000 Bosnian Muslim men and boys executed by Bosnian Serb forces. Our Balkan correspondent Provokes Świątek is on the ground and has this report.
Massive crowds have gathered in a remote mountainous region of Bosnia and Herzegovina today. Bosnia and Herzegovina, a country that comprises of three distinct ethno-national groups, the Bosnian Serbs, the Bosnian Croats and Bosnian Muslims, or Bosniaks. And it was this ethnic composition that led to a bloody war in Bosnia in the 90s, a war that had one of its climaxes here in Srebrenica, a safe area designated by the United Nations for Bosniaks to flee from war atrocities. But it was actually here in Srebrenica where the Bosnian Serbs murdered more than 8,000 Bosniak men and boys. A tragic event that was later recognized internationally as a genocide. New bodies, new victims are being recovered and recognized every year. This year, 7 more will be laid to peace here on the hills of Srebrenica. From Bosnia and Herzegovina, for TVP World, I'm Provokes Świątek.
Politicians are trying to use every method to stay in power. This is what Ivan Vejvoda from the Institute of Human Sciences told TVP World when asked about the division across political and ethnic lines in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
These populist, identitarian, right-wing politics are used for power retention. Politicians are trying to use every method in the book to try and stay in power. It must be reminded as well that the same Milorad Dodik in the parliament of the Republika Srpska produced one of the most detailed reports on what happened in Srebrenica and the responsibility about 20 years ago. So, and then in his recent incarnation, about 2 years ago, he had the parliament rescind that report. So again, this is all about politicians playing games which are short-sighted, short-term, and not thinking of the public good and acting, I would say, in a European value-based way in terms of rule of law and human rights.
Poles are honouring the memory of the victims of the genocide committed by Ukrainian nationalists in the Second World War, the Volhynia massacre. Last month, the Polish parliament voted for July 11th to mark the National Day of Remembrance for the massacre's victims. Our reporter Kazimierz Wysiak was at the ceremony and has more.
The man standing behind me is Ukrainian ambassador to Poland, Vasyl Bodnar, and he is here on the ceremonies commemorating the brutal genocide of Poles, which happened in the Second World War by Ukrainian nationalists. This day is a national day of remembrance for these Polish victims. The presence of the Ukrainian ambassador here perhaps is the best symbol of what Poland and Ukraine are trying to achieve today. Reconciliation of their very difficult past, an issue which has divided Poland and Ukraine for decades. Today, both Poles and Ukrainians are bowing their heads in respect to those who were so violently killed by Ukrainian nationalists 82 years ago. From Warsaw, Kazimierz Wysiak, TVP World.
Paraphrasing Holocaust survivor Marian Turski, Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski has appealed to the Polish public to not remain indifferent because Auschwitz did not fall from the sky. The appeal comes in the wake of a rise in anti-immigrant protests in Poland, as well as yet another scandalous statement from far-right MEP Grzegorz Braun, who has denied the existence of gas chambers in the Auschwitz-Birkenau Nazi German death camp.
What we are seeing on the streets right now is the aftermath of politicians playing with the migration issue. A group of Senegalese artists suddenly triggers some sort of anti-immigrant psychosis. And why? Because Poles have been conditioned to feel as if every foreigner is somehow a threat. We must put a stop to this rhetoric. We've seen instances in the past of Poland being labeled as an unfriendly destination due to alleged fears of violence. We must not remain indifferent. Someone stands to gain from this wave of racist aggression. Who, you ask? Right-wing politicians. We cannot remain indifferent. Auschwitz did not fall from the sky. Words always precede aggressive action.
A suspicious decoy drone flying in from Belarus appeared in Lithuanian airspace, prompting several government officials to be rushed into a shelter. Lithuania continues to be the target of Russian and Belarusian provocations.
This is the drone that crashed into Lithuanian territory on Thursday morning from Belarus.
It was flying at an altitude of about 100 meters, and the speed was around 50 to 60 kilometers per hour. It was already descending in our territory. When we found it, it was already on the ground. The response was swift. Fighter jets took off in response to NATO's emergency call. However, they returned to base when it was determined that the object had fallen and posed no threat. Still, in accordance with procedures, Parliament speakers Skvernelis and Prime Minister Palukas were evacuated to shelters.
The crashed UAV closely resembles an Iranian Shahed drone, and that's on purpose. The Russian Gerbera drone is a decoy model meant to imitate its deadly cousin. And what was it doing over Lithuanian airspace? One possibility is that it was sent by Belarusian smugglers.
Very often, not once a month, but more often. So our border guards, they catch up so they apprehend air balloons, which are used to transport tobacco products.
And while the Lithuanian officials say there is no evidence of direct involvement by the Belarusian regime, it doesn't mean that Lithuanian services can rest easy.
That was the Shahed-like, flying object which entered the Lithuanian space from Belarus. So we don't expect very friendly, just kind of best regards sending flying objects coming from Belarus.
Belarus, a de facto puppet state of Russia, has been constantly testing the borders of both Lithuania and Poland by sending waves of migrants to them as part of its hybrid war against the West. As Lithuania is one of the countries on NATO's eastern flank, it's constantly on the lookout for any new provocations from its Moscow-controlled neighbors. For TVP World, I'm Kazimierz Łysiak.
A 4-decade-long conflict comes to an end as the Kurdistan Workers' Party is set to symbolically lay down its arms in a ceremony in Iraq. The disarming process is expected to take months.
A few months back, the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK, has declared a ceasefire and agreed to disarm, ending its struggle against the Turkish state. The conflict has killed some 40,000 people. On Friday, the PKK officially began to disarm in order to enter the phase of democratic politics and law. According to the group's leader, the move has been applauded by the Turkish officials. The Kurdistan Workers' Party is a separatist movement fighting for Kurdish autonomy. It is considered a terrorist organization by Turkey, the US and the EU.
The European Union and Israel have reached a deal to expand humanitarian aid entering Gaza, according to Kaja Kallas, EU's chief diplomat. The agreement will be implemented in the coming days, making sure that aid is delivered directly to the local population.
Today, we reached an agreement with Israel to expand humanitarian access to Gaza. This deal means more crossings open, aid and food trucks entering Gaza, repair of vital infrastructure, and protection of aid workers. We count on Israel to implement every measure agreed.
And this concludes Midday Report. Thank you so much for joining us on TVP World, and stay tuned for more on our channel. Goodbye.